What up, gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we are going to be giving you our final thoughts on the Aeon's End Legacy of Gravehold campaign. So
Oh my gosh, we finally got it out of the table.
This is going to cover all of the content in this game. Now, I'm going to say it once, I'm going to say it twice, maybe 3 times just to get it across. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, feel free to take a look at our review that contains, I think, at most mild spoilers. There'll be a card popping up over there so you can check it out. And after you've gone through the whole campaign, you can come and see what our final thoughts are on this game. Now, it is, of course, published by Indie Boards and Cards and designed by Kevin Riley, Nick Little, and Sydney Englestein. Now, for those of you that don't care about spoilers and you still want to know a little bit about the game, Julie's going to tell you a little bit more about the game itself.
So it is a cooperative game for ages 14 and above. It's 1 to 4 players and plays in about 60 minutes, according to the box.
I would say depends on the nameless. You can have shorter fights, you can have longer fights. I would say, though, if you're playing 4 players, probably 90 is closer to what it actually is. So what are you doing in this game? Well, you'll be acquiring cards from the market, as you can see here, building your deck, powering up your mage using their special abilities to defeat the nameless and protect the city of Gravehold. And the unique thing about Aeon's End is you do not shuffle your cards. You'll be discarding them in a specific way and then picking them up and flipping your deck over and starting from the last card in your discard pile. So your discard order is very important in the game. Also, just a little bit of comments. Love the cards. We sleeve a lot of stuff. We haven't sleeved the Aeon's End cards because not a lot of shuffling, and the card quality and card stock is fantastic. Now, don't want to really talk more about the game. If you, in terms of like what you're going to be doing, really want to dive into talking about this specific game, spoilers and all. So that's what we're going to do. This is your last warning. We're getting into it. So I'm going to grab my drink and quickly take a sip because we've been talking. So I'll get a nice cheers with my fellow mage, and we'll say, yay, we did it. We finished the campaign game. It's been hard as of late.
Yeah, so I'm going to reiterate a comment that I made in the initial review. And I'm gonna say that compared to other Aeon's End games, or I would say that we're upgrading cards more than we're upgrading our mages. I found it a little bit frustrating to be changing mages all the time. Mm-hmm. I would have preferred to have one mage that I build and go from there.
But the one thing I will say that I really liked about upgrading multiple mages and going through all the mages, and this comes with where the story ends in Aeon's End Legacy Gravehold, and we'll talk about the story now we get there. This feels like almost the last Aeon's End game. So it really made sense that you were upgrading, different mages. You're playing all the different characters that were available, and you just had a whole ton of mages that you could play as. So that really made sense.
It made sense. I prefer the style of play.
I'll agree with you. I still think I enjoyed the experience of making my own mage in Legacy more, but when we first reviewed the game, what we said was we didn't understand why you were, you're always switching mages. When we got to the end of the story, it completely made sense. So I will give the game a pass for that because of what it was trying to, not what it's trying to do, but what it does with the storyline.
And it was funny that as we're playing, we always pick the good side whenever we're playing, games. That's just the way I am, and I think Jason humors me a little bit. But
it's really fun to be bad sometimes.
But in this case, as the story was progressing, we were realizing that the quote-unquote bad mages were much more fun to play. They were more powerful, and they had more tricks up their sleeves.
Yes. The other thing is that the perspective of the main character, Brahma, is not exactly right. And the one thing I will say about this is you have the choice of starting with the Azer campaign or the Gravehold campaign. The narrative books, from what we've seen, are entirely identical. Just one way you go Azer first, other way you go Gravehold first. So it doesn't seem to make that much of a difference. And I think they should have just started out with the Gravehold narrative because and then going into Azer, as Julie said, the mages felt more powerful on the Azer side. They were a little bit more fun. Also, I felt that the story progressed more naturally, like going from Brahma's perspective, and you can see the way that she's mistaken a lot of the way she's doing things, and how her opinions and the way she's managed New Gravehold have led to this dire situation that all the characters now find themselves in, which really sort of explains Xana's pushback. Now, if we got Xana's perspective in the first place, I don't know if that story would have come across as well as it did the way that we played it.
Yeah. I mean, so it is interesting with this system. I did enjoy, actually, both of my characters that I ended up the last battle with are characters that they have an upgrade deck. And actually one of yours as well, Xanos.
Zaxos, yes. We were playing with Zaxos. So I was Zaxos and Arachnos. You've got
Mazra and Mazra.
Yeah, and those characters worked well together because Zaxos is all about charges, and you guys were feeding me a ton of charges, letting me get my big spells, which really helped out in terms of dealing with the final boss. We'll talk about who the final boss is in a couple minutes there, but I really don't know, thinking back to the Gravehold mages that we were playing, how we would have been able to deal the massive amount of damage, just like with our characters themselves, if we had been playing the Aether mages. And the fact that the event deck even says, if you're fighting Brahma, read this. If not, read the other section. So it's clearly written from a specific perspective. And that is a little bit disappointing in the Legacy game. That being said, though, it still works. It's not necessarily like a big bad negative. So let's just talk about what's going on in the game, the storyline, the campaign, what you'll be doing, how you upgrade, your cities, your factions. You're going to start with Aether. You're going to start with New Gravehold. Essentially, there's a character that shows up called the Bishops that has control of the Nameless. And what they're going to be doing is attacking you in different areas of the world that you know of. So right now, there's only New Gravehold. There's I believe it's the town of Fairn. There's the North and South Outposts and the city of Aether. And what's happening is this character is going around and creating all these really powerful namelesses, attacking the southern outpost, the northern outpost, and depending on the decision that you make, it's going to affect the flow of the game. It will also affect some of the characters' allegiances at the end of the game. Some characters switching over to Gravehold, some switching over to Aether. Your mages can also become severed from their connection to magic and be taken out of the game entirely. That never happened to us, luckily, so we had all our mages at the end. And throughout the course of the storyline, it's like you might show up at a location and it's clear that the Aether mages have fought there, or the Aether mages will show up after the Gravehold mages have fought there. And throughout the entire time, you're getting the ideology of Xana, Brahma, and the two different, ideas of what society should be like, competing with each other because each side thinks that the other is responsible for it. So the bishop is really playing everyone off of each other. And I don't want to talk too much more on the story details than that. It would be really getting to the nitty-gritty. We did some playing for a while, and then we came back to it. But I think that really summarizes what's going on. The end of the game is a final confrontation between...
And I don't think we should spoil that.
I was going to say the end of the game is the final confrontation between Brahma and Xana. And you get to pick a side, and that's who you're going to fight. And then you will find out who the bishop is. And I think you're right, though. We won't say who the bishop is because it does tie back into a lot of stuff that's been happening throughout the course of Aeon's End. And as you'll know, not all characters have gone from the first game all the way to this game. So I thought that was pretty cool, and it worked very well. What we can talk about, though, is the fact that you're going to be facing off in the end against basically versions of all the different Nameless that you fought as the bishop is trying to make the ultimate Nameless, and I thought that was really cool. I thought
it was a pretty, and you said you felt like this was the end of Aeon's End. And I think it does tie the story up nicely, and I'm satisfied with the way it ends. Sometimes when things just don't die or don't die well, or they don't finish off well, it can be frustrating. But this one, I think has a nice satisfaction level.
Yeah, and there could be more Aeon's End. Like, they could do something 200 years in the future. They could, astronauts could actually be Aeon's End in space, for all we know, with regards to the storyline. But this really takes the beginning and progresses it to the ending, whereas this was a post-apocalyptic world, and while things still aren't good, you're still dealing with the fact that there are nameless, there's void magic, you're being attacked from the void. Characters are finding a way to live in this world and not just survive. And I don't think it could have ended it any other way. Anything else would be too, like Hollywood, movie, video gaming, trying to tie everything up with a bow. And I don't think that would make sense for Aeon's End, the world and the universe that's been created here.
I don't have much else to add, honestly.
No, I think we really enjoyed all the other mages. It was really fun to try out some of the other ones. I liked a lot. Don't think I played Talix at the time, which is one of my favorites. There is definitely, Julie said, like some serious power creep. Like Zaxos is probably the most powerful mage, and that makes sense, especially going through a storyline from when it was introduced to now. But it does feel a little off with regards to how you're going to defeat the final boss without some of these really heavy hitting cards that you can pull out of Zaxos' deck, especially because you're acquiring stuff through charges. That being said, I'm sure if you are really good at combos with certain mages, you could probably build some really powerful combos, such as with Malistaire, his daughter Claudia, and I'm forgetting the wife, her character, that can all sort of combo together. There might have been some interesting possibilities to really just buy some of the powerful spells from here and then use those abilities to defeat the end villain. So our original score for this was 8.5. We've now played through the whole campaign. I'm going to let Julie go first. What do you think? Is it an 8.5? Is it a 9? Has it gone down?
I think it's still an 8.5.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the game stays on an 8.5. I don't think anything's really gone and pushed it up. I think if I saw some more replayability of going through the Azer campaign to the Gravehold campaign, but after flipping through the Azer book, so yes, we did take a look at the other side, and it really is identical. Just to confirm that, I don't think it can get up to a 9 for me. This is going to stay an 8.5. It's a great Aeon's End game, but the one caveat I will say is this is not a good starting point in the series. If you're looking for an Aeon's End Legacy experience, get Legacy. That is an Aeon's End starting experience. This is something to pick up after you've played like everything that's been released from Legacy to the end, or for someone that has the entire game. Now, gameplay-wise, it's great. Not going to have any issues, but to really feel that impact of the story, you really need to have played every game in the collection. Not necessarily every expansion, but every core box. Otherwise, the narrative is going to be like, why am I going through this narrative? It's not going to have the same impact at all.
Agreed. So, on that note, it's time to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when we have some new content for you.
And take a look down below in the video description. There'll be links to all of our social media feeds, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you'd like to see pictures of Julie and I playing Aeon's End, Legacy of Gravehold, there'll be plenty on those feeds. Plenty of us playing Aeon's End as well, so make sure to check them out. Also down there's a link to multizone.ca, a great Canadian game store. Click that link, you'll get 10% off your next purchase. It's a great way to support the channel. A portion of that purchase is returned to us. So if you're looking for some Aeon's End content, you're in Canada, make sure that you click on that link. And then popping up in front of us are going to be links to some of our previously released videos. Over here will be our most recent release. And over here will take you back to our review of Aeon's End Legacy if you want to hear some more Legacy of Gravehold, in-depth thoughts on the mechanics as a whole. And now we're going to grab our drink, grab our fellow mage, and we're going to keep playing games.
Keep playing games, but we finally finished this one.
Yes, and we'll play some more Aeon's End and definitely some Astro Knights in the future.